And welcome to the 2018 Town Hall Debate. My name is Renee Louie. I'm the Executive Director of the Business Council of Douglas County. And along with Bill Chernock, Executive Director of the Carson Valley Chamber of Commerce, and as well we have Kurt from the Record-Courier. These hosts today are so happy that you're here. Our first debate this evening will be with the county commissioners. And most importantly, we have a wonderful moderator, Judge Tom Perkins. Give a hand for Judge. I don't think there's probably two people left in the community that wouldn't know Judge Perkins. He has been an incredible servant in the county, in the legal arena, and as a judge on the bench for this community. And we can't appreciate him more. So we're very, very happy to have him here as our moderator tonight. He will explain the format for the evening. The candidates are well prepared. They've worked very hard for you tonight. So ahead of everything, please give them a hand for at least the courage to even run, all of them. If you think it's an easy job, it's not. And after you do all that hard work, which isn't all that much fun, then you actually have to, if you get elected, do the job, which is probably 100 times harder. So we give them a lot of credit for having the energy to do this and the commitment to the community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judge Perkins, and away we go.
Thank you. You know, I think we ought to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Don't you think so? Everyone stand up. Roxanne Stengel will lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm just going to say a couple words so they can make sure anybody can't hear me in the back. Okay. All right, good enough. I'd like to say a couple of things before we start. One is, I think JaUvJjgB owes me a steak sandwich because he's been the moderator for 20 years that I know of, and he got out of it this year. So he owes me a steak sandwich, and you're all witnesses. The second thing I'd like to do is introduce some of the other candidates who are here. And unfortunately, we're not going to give you a time to speak, but I think in view of the fact that you put your name out and applied for public office, we're going to introduce you. JaUvJjgB. And Trent Nolan. Those are your candidates for county assessor. Kathy Lewis is running against herself. I'll introduce the commissioner candidates in a minute. Although Christy Kendall's here, Miss Kendall, you want to stand up in back? She's a nonpartisan candidate in the district with Mr. Rice and Miss Murphy. Mark Jackson's here. Mark's the district attorney. He was here. Deborah Logan and Steve Walsh are the candidates for public administrator. Miss Logan? Are they here? I thought they were here. Karen Ellison's here. She's the county recorder. And Cassandra Jones.
Right here.
She's a candidate for the East Court Justice Court, and so is Eric Levin. Eric? I think that'll do. I'd like to say one more thing before we get started. I happen to think that holding public office is a high calling and that public service is a noble endeavor. It takes a tremendous amount of courage and energy for these people to submit their candidacies and to serve the community in the way they do. And as a compliment to that, I'd like to thank each and every person who came here today, whether you came to support your candidate or to find out which candidates you would like to support or are going to vote for to inform yourself. This is the fabric of our modern political life. And I think we do it different down here at the grassroots than they do it in other places. And I'd like to thank all of you, and I'd like to thank all the candidates for putting their names out. So here's what's going to happen. The town hall debate is a tradition in the community and widely recognized as the fair and balanced party-neutral forum for candidates to meet, greet, and share their views with the community at large. This evening, we're going to focus on the candidates for county commission and county sheriff. And we're looking forward to your participation in a successful evening of respectful and meaningful dialogue and hearing your thoughts about the job. We know you've worked hard. We have a timekeeper who will warn with a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left. The red card means your time is up. Can you all see that? Okay. We're going to commence with opening remarks from each candidate. And the order for opening remarks based on time in elected office will be Mr. Thaler, Mr. Rice, Ms. Murphy, and Mr. Engels. Each will have 2 minutes, and that order will be reversed for the closing remarks. So why don't we do that? Should I explain the whole thing now, or just the... Okay. First round of questions. There's a total of 8 questions for the candidates. And what we're going to do, the first candidate on the question will be asked the question and have 2 minutes to answer. All of the other candidates will follow the original response with 1 minute of comments on the same question. And the order determining which candidate answers first was randomly drawn earlier this evening. And then I'll move to the next candidate. So whoever gets the first one, then the next time around, the second person will get the first question. You'll get it when we start doing it. The second round will feature questions from the audience. And the audience has been given the opportunity to write down their questions and submit them to the moderator, who will filter out any offensive, repeat, or irrelevant material. Hopefully nobody on the floor is a lawyer. If a question is directed to you, you have 1 minute to respond, and usually this round lasts about 15 to 10 minutes. If there's no questions from the audience, then we move on to the final round. So the final round is closing remarks, and all candidates will have 2 minutes for final remarks, and there's no rebuttals in the final round. Now, before we start, Clerk Treasurer Kathy Lewis has important voting information to share with all voters as the laws have changed. Oh, you didn't know you were going to get called on, did you?
Thank you. I thought it was maybe later, so I went and sat back down. My name is Kathy Lewis, the Clerk Treasurer, and I just really quickly, because I know that you would like to hear these candidates speak, so I just wanted to go through a couple changes that have happened with the last legislative session that affects the election this year that's coming up. The first one is permanent absentee voter status. If you are over 65 or self-identified as disabled, you can request a permanent absentee ballot. That means that you don't have to re-request it every year. If you're interested in that, you can pull the form off our website or go to our office and pick up that request. The second one we have is that there's going to be a separate line at each polling location. If you cannot physically stand in the line, you can go to the front of the line or the separate line to go in. And that is courtesy of our Senator Settlemeyer sponsored that bill. The other thing is a change in deadline in the voter registration. You have until next Thursday at midnight to register or change your party. So that next Saturday, a week from Saturday, we start early voting. You have till next Thursday at midnight to change your party or register to vote. And then the last big thing was that we got a state appropriation for new election equipment. So when you come to our polling locations, you'll see new election equipment, which is very exciting. Part of that change with the new election equipment is we will have electronic poll books, which means on election day, you can go to any of our polling locations to vote. You don't have to go to your specific polling location in your neighborhood. I like to tell people that you can go out to lunch and stop anywhere you want, or if you're at work, you can stop at lunch where you're at. So we did have to reduce our polling locations to accommodate this. For The election, we will have 8 polling locations on election day. We'll have Sunridge, Johnson Lane, Community Center, Genoa Town Hall, the Ranchos, Topaz, Kale, and Washoe Elder Center. The other piece of this is that you will be getting your sample ballots in the mail next week. We're mailing them next week. But you can go online to our website at govotedouglas.com and look up your voter record, and we have a PDF of your sample ballot there if you'd like to look at it. And I do have voter information and absentee requests back at the back table. If you have any questions about anything, I'm back there to answer any questions. Finally, I want to say there was a comment about a high calling of a public office. We had 90 positions that we opened up for candidate filing in March. 30 of those positions have to be appointed by their boards because no one filed. So if you ever think that you want to be interested, there are other opportunities besides the commissioners or the sheriff race to get involved. So you please come see me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, the next step is opening remarks, and we'll start with Mr. Taylor. Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Taylor, and I currently am your chairman of the Board of County Commissioners for Douglas County. So, being that I'm up here, I'm running for re-election. I moved here in 1980. This was right after 4 years serving in the United States Marine Corps, and I look out and I see a lot of veterans here, and I want to thank you for your service. I came here for a reason. 1, a job. 2, to raise my family. And that's what I've done. I have my lovely wife who sits in the back, Joanne. I have 3 wonderful children who are all married, except for one, the middle one. We're still working on that. And we have 3 grandchildren. 2 out of the 3 live here, and we're raising them in Douglas County. I didn't just move here 5 years ago. I moved here 38 years ago. I began my career with the Sheriff's Office. I spent 10 years as a working patrolman here, Valley, the Lake, Topaz, everywhere. After that, I spent 5 years in the District Attorney's Office as a special investigator. And in 1995, I gave my biggest career jump, and that was to be the director of the China Spring Youth Camp. And I did that for 16 years. And in 2011, I retired. Not really. Retirement is somewhat overrated. I went to work. I did some part-time work as a school bus driver. That was kind of fun. I also worked for the Reno Aces. But most importantly, in 2008, I was appointed to the Minden Town Board. I spent 6 years on that board. In 2012, I was elected. And then in 2014, everybody here, elected me to the Board of County Commissioners. Now, I will point out I ran unopposed, so at least one of you did. I am a fiscal conservative. I have good common sense. I have the experience and a great understanding of Douglas County. My objectives will always be to listen to all sides before making a decision.
You're off.
And I'm done.
Wait a minute, Wes. Miss Murphy's next on opening remarks. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That wasn't the order I was told in by Miss Louie, anyway. Start now. My name is Janet Murphy. I'm running for District 4, and I want to say thank you all for coming here today. It's such a pleasure to speak in front of you. I am second generation here. My parents go back many, many years ago when the first Texaco gas station was here, and also the Motel Villa that was up in Lake Tahoe. I followed suit. My parents retired here 40 years ago, and I followed suit 30 years ago, so 10 years after they were here. I have 2 children that were raised here, went to Motel High School, UNR, graduated from there. My husband and I grew up in Castro Valley, high school sweethearts. He played in the rodeo, he was in bull rider, I was in barrel racing, and then we moved here to this beautiful motherlode. Like my father called it, I'm moving to God's country. It truly is God's country. You have the majestic mountains, the Sierras, and you have the beautiful national treasure, Lake Tahoe. and I intend to keep it that way. And this is what I want to do for you, and I'm going to tell you about my experience, because I have a track record. 26 years of my public service has been working for the people in infrastructure, utilities, and also an advisor at the state legislature. I've been all over around the state in Nevada, looking at financial difficulty of certain governments, helping them out, and I've been extremely successful. At my district for 26 years, called Tahoe Douglas District, which is a utility district that encompasses all the way from Spooner Summit to Round Hill, is an exemplary district. My rates haven't been increased in 10 years. We have $1,000 hookups. I've taken a surplus of $2,400 in that bank account to $4 million in reserve. I've done it for other entities in this entire state of Nevada, and I want to do it here for you in Douglas County because I believe in efficient, effective, and fair government because I work for the people. And I'm done. Thank you.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Wes Rice. On these red and white signs all over town, it says Wesley because that's how the name's going to be on the ballot. I can't get out of it. After serving in the Navy, I started my career in law enforcement. I was with the city of Pasadena for 28 years. I started in 1962. I know, a long time. As a cadet and was promoted to police officer in 64. I retired in 1990. When I retired, I was a lieutenant in command of the detective section. I had been a sergeant for 10 years, a lieutenant for 6. I had a budget of more than $3 million, and I had 28 detectives, 4 sergeants, and 15 civilians that worked for me. We moved here in 1991. We finally escaped. And the reason why we left was because they destroyed everything that my wife and I loved. And we moved here because this reminded me of what I grew up with. And I really want to make damn sure that I keep it this way. I was with the Douglas County Sheriff Department as a reserve and rose to the rank of reserve captain. I also served 15 years on the patrol boat on Lake Tahoe. My wife and I have been active in Douglas County community for almost 3 decades. Politically, I've been a lifelong Republican. I served 1 term as a vice chair and 2 terms as the chair of the Douglas County Republican Central Committee. And for the last 14 years, I've been the Nevada State Republican Party Rural Caucus Chair, representing the interests of all 15 rural counties. I've been to 3 national conventions, twice as an alternate, and I'm done. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Engels. One of the things that's fascinating about doing this is all the people that you meet. I just met a guy over here, sergeant major in the Army, who was in the field artillery. I never meet anybody who was in the artillery. So there's one guy besides me in Douglas County who was in the artillery. Anyway, I'm a creature of corporate America. I come out of the private sector. I was the chief financial officer of a company doing about $500 million a year. We had about 30,000 employees nationwide. I'm used to big budgets and making decisions on a corporate level of that scale. I went to college in Idaho. As soon as I graduated and stepped off campus, the Army grabbed me. I was dating a young girl from Winnemucca. I went in the Army, she married a cowboy. But I have a beautiful wife, it worked out great. And I met her at Starbucks. How's that for an advertisement? At any rate, one of the things I've noticed, and one of the reasons I'm doing this, is that I was always loving the Intermountain West. I didn't want to go in the Army. I wanted to stay in Idaho. I was on the ski team. I skied all over the Intermountain West. We used to race against UNR at Mount Rose and Squaw Valley. And I've seen how things have changed. And I agree with what everybody is talking about up here, and I'm sure that all of you feel the same way. There's going to be a choice. And it's going to be decided by the 5 commissioners that we have, rural or urban. And you can see the direction that we're headed in. So you have to make a choice, and then you have to watch what we're doing, because I'm not here to represent myself. I'm here to represent you folks and what you want. And this is what I've been hearing since I've been walking around the county and talking to everybody. They want to maintain the rural character, and I'm of that persuasion. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna reverse that order at the closing remarks. But for all the questions, we're gonna go down the line the way that you were told. So we're gonna start with Mr. Thaler. The second question will lead with Mr. Rice. The third question will lead with Ms. Murphy. So Mr. Thaler, you're gonna get 2 minutes. The rest of you will get 1 minute to respond or offer your own comments. The first question, what are your priorities for general fund spending in the county?
Thank you, Judge. So the priorities we have a strategic plan in Douglas County, and that is one that we decide on and we develop every year. For me, the strategic plan is all about keeping this a safe community, keeping it rural, and keeping it protected. As many of you may or may not know, we've protected over 30,000 acres of land. Most of that we're looking at, or at least we get to look at. And that's a priority for me. It's conservation. It's about keeping growth to the bare minimum. Growing, we're going to grow. Everybody knows this. We're going to grow. Don't be afraid of the word growth, but it has to be a controlled growth. So for me, I've always said, number one, safe community. Fortunately for you, you're all going to hear from that next group, the sheriffs, and you'll find out how they've been able to keep this a safe community. That's my priority. Without a safe community here, all things go downhill. So that's my answer.
Okay, Mr. Rice, what are your priorities for general fund spending? You have 1 minute. And everyone's going to get 1 minute on the same question.
I don't think I can spend that much in 1 minute. I really believe that we need to keep a sheriff department that is the best in the state. We have that now. I want to keep it that way. I'm also very proud of the fact that our ranchers and farmers have come forward and sold their rights to build on their own property. They will preserve this valley for years to come. We will have growth. It needs to be formulated properly so that those that have been born and raised here will have a place that they can call their own instead of having to move off Douglas County ground and move to Carson City or the valleys to the east of us. We need to be able to have our people work here and live here.
I have a little different take on it. My priorities are your infrastructure. Like I said, this is what I do, government, my whole entire career. That is the first priority, is to fix your infrastructure before you start growing out. Because I tell you what they do. They rob Peter to pay Paul. When they do a development, they're supposed to go ahead and take those fees and taxes to pay for itself. Meaning that it's supposed to take care of the infrastructure as well as capital improvement. So they don't do that. It goes into the general fund, it ends up in another coffer, and they spend it someplace else. They have to keep redeveloping to pay for the other development. It's like a pyramid effect. I believe that we can make this county, because it's a gem, we can make this, rather than housing everywhere, a recreation destination. And I truly believe that, because you have the potential of doing that. You have Lake Tahoe. You have everything right here, sitting right here. Trust me, like I said, I've been around this entire state, and it can be done. You can generate revenues another way. Thank you.
One of the important things, whether it's government, the private sector, or GIDs, or any of these entities that we have in the county that's important, is good management. If they're not properly managed, then they turn into problems. They're designed to fix things, but you need to have good management. One of the things that I've been noticing is the expansion with development, and I'm not talking small developments, I'm talking 300, 400, 500 houses, whatever they're doing in a whack. The other thing is affordable housing. Affordable housing is fine if you keep the units small, 10, 12, 15 units, but not these projects they're putting in with 100 and 300 units. These are projects, and that starts to invite an element we don't want here.
next question for Mr. Rice, and for all of you. The people who live in the towns and GIDs already pay for the maintenance of their local roads. There's a need for more funds to do the same in the rest of the county. How do you propose to pay for that? Now, we're not talking about regional roads like Tillman or Waterloo. We're talking about the local roads in the neighborhoods which are not in the GIDs or the towns.
Coming from a GID that has really great roads, I can understand what it's like to drive on Waterloo Lane. I'm wondering if my shocks are going to hold up. I don't have a magic bullet. I know that the roads do need to be fixed. I'm not sure that I want to see a countywide tax that the people that live in GIDs are going to be paying twice for roads. I'm not sure that that's the answer. I wish that I had an answer, but I know something has to be done, and one of the things that we can do is talk together, work together, get public input, find out what the people of this county want and how they want to fund it.
Well, the GIDs do their own roads. So do you create another district for those individual roads? A lot of homeowners homeowner associations take care of their own roads as well. So they have to consider that too. They take them out of the equation. So those are the options. You can do another district, but that only the people that have those roads that we would be maintaining would be in that district. They were the ones to be taxed, nobody else, because all the other entities do their own roads. That's a possibility. Or are you going to help out with the GIDs, and the GIDs can help out with the other roads as well? There's different ways. There's other solutions can do that to make it fair and equitable.
The grand jury recently released a report, and there was a section in there specifically referring to GIDs. The bottom line was that some of them need some help. You get out in the Topaz area, those folks are having a tough time keeping up with all of the road maintenance. There's been some money allocated to them, but it just came out recently, and it's not enough to take care of it all. But it comes back to the same thing. Do the GIDs need to be consolidated? Do they need to be merged? Do they need to be dissolved? This is a mandate that the county commissioners have to deal with. And it was the recommendation of the grand jury that the county commissioners deal with this. And I haven't seen anything coming out specifically lately. Thank you.
So if you believe in the concept that the government closest to the people is the most effective, and I do, we have GIDs, which are below the county commission, and we have the towns. I happen to live in the town of Minden, so I pay the highest tax rate, 3.66. I'm not complaining, because you drive in the town of Minden or the town of Gardnerville, or let's say you shoot on up to Indian Hills or even down into Topaz Ranch, all four of those entities pay the highest amount. We don't complain because we're paying for those roads. So when you're going to create a district, and there are opportunities for us as commissioners to look at everybody that's not paying for their roads, and then maybe we talk to the developers and say, we need to come up with a 30-year plan. A 30-year plan, that's something we're not doing. Right now, everybody pays 5 cents, 5.64 out of their property taxes that goes to the big picture roads. It's an issue that we as commissioners are going to have to deal with it, and my guess is we'll probably be dealing with it fairly soon.
I think it's now Ms. Murphy's turn.
I thought we got 1 minute to rebate.
No, not, you had 1 minute, you had the opening, and so now it's Ms. Murphy's turn for the next question.
Okay? Go GIDs.
Okay, Ms. Murphy, the next question is as follows. How do you think the commission should react to the information from the grand jury report? In other words, what do you think the county commission should do in response to the grand jury?
Well, I think they need to do a lot of correcting, that's for sure. also keeping their mouth shut by saying $400,000 is a drop in a bucket. I think that's absurd, and no commissioner should ever say that. That was inappropriate, or that we're just a figurehead. Those things are inappropriate. You should not. That even shouldn't have been ever said from anybody. As far as some of the things that are on there, oh boy, let me tell you, there's Tigergate. Well, that needs to be, the internal controls was not there, obviously. I think that there needs to be policy in place that if you were to make your department heads responsible and sign a policy that they're going to be the ones ultimately responsible for any of their budgets, I think they might be paying attention a little more. But there has to be internal controls in Tigergate. There was many things that they need to address in that grand jury report. I don't know if you all read it, but you need to go to the county site and read it. It's right there. I would suggest you strongly to read what's going on. And as far as there's other things that are going on in the police department, there was many things that were going on in the grand jury that the county overlooked. They didn't see. You have to keep in check. There has to be controls. I mean, I've done this with my government. I don't have an issue because I stay on top of it. I get involved. And it's not micromanaging. It's just making sure that your department heads are doing what they're supposed to do. Have a meeting once a month with them. Find out what's going on. Take a look at their budgets once in a while. Spend some time. Get involved. It's not micromanaging. It's just making sure that your money is taken care of properly and it's not being wasted away.
Okay, keep going this way. That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, the grand jury report was an indictment against the county government and the management of the government. Tigergate and other incidents of mismanagement. It's sad that we got to this point, but you need to read the grand jury report. And I don't know if they've read it yet. They're not acting on it. The other thing is they should have read subsequent grand jury reports, which were not done. The grand jury should be convened at least every 5 years. They are very good at smoking things out, helping to manage the county, and take it to heart. They worked real hard to put it together. They were good people, and it was a great audit. They did a good job. I think there should be some people who should be dispatched from their jobs because they were completely negligent with the situation with Tigergate. That was an appalling situation that went on for years. Thank you.
We'll figure it out, guys.
You're doing great.
So the grand jury report, I think most of you know, the grand jury report's a check and balance on the system. Yes, they're supposed to be convened every 5 years, but we as commissioners, we don't get that choice. It actually comes from the district courts. So in this case, I think there was probably 7 years that went by. One might question if one had been formed maybe 5 years ago, would Tigergate have been formed or found out? And I would say, yeah, probably. But here's the deal. The grand jury just didn't talk about Tigergate or the embezzlement, a criminal embezzlement by a rogue employee. Sad to say, it hurts to the heart. I was elected in 14, I took office in 15. When people talk about we're not doing anything, I disagree. In fact, when we addressed the grand jury report just recently, 2 months ago at one of our county commission meetings, they had listed all of what they wanted us to do. Many of those items we had already started working on and had accomplished. Good one, waste, fraud, and abuse program. A lot of people go, aren't you a little late on that? Well, we learned a lot from the grand jury, but that's what the grand jury is for, to tell us what we need to do as well.
When I hear the term gate attached to something, I think of a large conspiracy. Watergate, Whitewatergate, some kind of gate, that kind of gate. This was an employee who was a thief. He had a supervisor that didn't keep a watch on him, and the grand jury took a look at that. But what we really need to understand is the fact that that is now in the hands of the Attorney General, and we will not know exactly what happened, who was involved, how many heads ought to roll, until that report comes out. Until such time, I really support most of the employees in this county, especially those in the Sheriff's Office, they didn't fall down on the job. That is something that should have and did go to the Attorney General.
Mr. Engels, the next question's for you, and we'll just keep going in the same order. And you're going to get 2 minutes, and then everyone else gets 1 minute, and then we'll go to the next question. But for you, sir, what do you consider to be the cost per unit or per month of affordable or workforce housing, and who would you expect to live in that kind of housing?
Well, affordable housing is a relative term. I'd like to live in Pebble Beach, but I can't afford it. And it's the way that it's structured so that it can be managed, because we start getting into that. Most of us who come from large municipalities, we understand what affordable housing means. It's like project housing. So I'm not sure what the other candidates mean by affordable housing. What I have seen are some big apartment complexes that have been approved by the commissioners. A big one going in behind Walmart, another big one going in behind the medical center down there where 88 and 395 come together. And the one down there behind the medical center, it started out with 100 units, and now it's gone up to 300 units. That's real big, and that starts to attract elements that will try to penetrate into the area, and then you get Section 8, and things just start to happen. Affordable housing is fine, but let's just keep it smaller. Let's use fill-in units, 10, 15 units in different areas, and manage it that way. I fully understand that there are folks that need apartments and things of that nature to live in, or they're not even interested in maintaining a yard anymore. But it's how we approach that and what we're going to do. I've heard it, it's for our veterans. Well, I'm a veteran, and I know what veterans go through when they come back into civilian life. Sometimes we got to think with our backbone and not our wishbone in regard to some of these items. Thank you.
Anyone think we have affordable housing in Douglas County? We don't. Okay. And here's the problem. We have a lack of inventory. As fast as an apartment goes on the market, it's eaten up, and that drives up the cost. When we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about policemen, firemen, teachers. These are the people that need to work and live in their same environment. They truly do. You're talking probably anywhere is 40,000. I know starting deputy is probably maybe 42, 43,000. Teachers maybe a little less. We need to find places for these people to live. And if it means approving a subdivision or an apartment complex or a condo complex so that these people can live here, absolutely. But I can sure as heck tell you, because of our growth ordinance, it's not going to happen at the gigantic scale that some people may think or lead you to believe.
Before I start, I'd like to ask a question. How many of you were born here? Look at the hands, or should I say the lack of hands. People that were raised here, born here, had their children, they've been here for generations, they're being forced out. It's getting to the point where they have no place that they can afford to live. Californians, and I'm one of them, have retired and moved here to the promised land. They've jacked the prices up, and now the locals that should have a place and a right to live here are forced out. I think that's just wrong.
You'll first have to understand what affordable housing is, okay? I know a lot of people think affordable housing is making a house that's less. Affordable housing, let me tell you right now, I go by all my legal stuff. That's what I do. And affordable housing right now is when it's subsidized by the federal government, because our federal dollars pay into a federal government that goes into a coffer that's for affordable housing for anywhere in the state, and that's how it's subsidized. And there's a criteria that you have to meet. And I can't get into all the details, but there's affordable housing and attainable housing. I'll say I got 30 seconds left. Then there's subsidized housing. Subsidized housing is even worse because you get the federal government, plus the county also has a coffer that's subsidized because they can't make up the difference for rent. Okay? As far as affordable housing, what they're talking about, affordable housing is what I do. I have a rental, but I don't charge them an arm and a leg. That's affordable housing. And that's what people need to do, because if you start getting into the really term of affordable housing, it's subsidized by federal money, which is all of our money because we pay into the federal government. And you have to meet a criteria also. Sorry. Talk to me afterwards. I know all the details here.
Okay, Mr. Thaler, the next question starts with you, 2 minutes. Everyone else gets 1 minute to comment, and then we'll keep moving. What role do you see for the towns and districts in the future of Douglas County?
Towns and districts?
Right.
So towns and GIDs. Actually, I said earlier about our role as the closest, government closest. And towns, I sat on the town board for 6 years. I loved it. It was a phenomenal job. We've got a couple town board members here. Phenomenal job. You want to get involved in politics, start at the town level. You'll learn a lot. Maybe that's a precursor to the county commission. I certainly used it for my pathway. So I learned a lot, and I learned the value of the towns and GIDs. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you that there are some GIDs that may not do what they're supposed to be doing? Yeah, maybe. We'll know. We got a bill out there that we're going to vote on here pretty soon, and we'll create a committee, and they'll go in and look, and maybe they'll get something out of it, maybe how they can do their job a little bit better. But I can tell you right now, a lot of GIDs do a phenomenal job. They help out the county, a phenomenal job. I know the towns, both Gardnerville, Genoa, and Minden, do a phenomenal job by taking the heat off Douglas County. They take care of a lot of our roads that we don't have to take it. They don't have to, but they do. They take care of our roads. Why? Because it's Minden. That's why we live here. That's why you get the little extra. So I think there's, absolutely 100%, we've got great GIDs, we've got great towns. I think there's a future for them. I don't want to do anything but build them up, help them along the way, do what we can do for them, and don't get in their way.
I've been a member of the Round Hill GID as a trustee for 14 years. I'm now the chair of that board. And they have also elected me to represent them on the new sewer authority. There used to be Douglas County Sewer Authority number 1, which has now got a fancy title, Douglas County Lake Tahoe Sewer Authority. So we're no longer a district, we're an authority on things that flow uphill. I want to tell you that the GID that I belong to in Kingsbury and others that we have do a marvelous job taking care of our residents and who we call our ratepayers. And it would be a shame to have a large entity take over the well-functioning GIDs and have all that money flow away from the people that have put into it and have it come off of the hill.
Wes didn't mention my GID, though. Tahoe Douglas District. For 26 years I've been there. And it's an exemplary district. It's the best. I can guarantee you that. Anyway, yeah, SB 462. Yeah, I know when that was created. That is a very interesting bill. And I agree, because I'm the one who saved those GIDs. Because when, like Mr. Rice had mentioned about the sewer authority, when it was DCSID number 1, and it became the sewer authority, well, when that bill came out, 471, it was going to give them all the authority over all the districts. But you know what I did? I went in and amended it. Last legislation. So I gave 51% of the property owners up there at the lake a voice to say who's going to be in charge of their regime. And that's what I'm going to do for you. I believe in small government. I've done it. I practice it. I'm an example of what a conservative government, Republican, is supposed to serve. Thank you.
I'm not opposed to GIDs if they're well managed. but there's some things to consider. A lot of the GIDs have been put together to maintain roads. Didn't we have a 5% gasoline tax increase to maintain roads? And what do we pay our property taxes for? Where does that money go? And why is it not allocated to roads? It seems like there's places around the county that the road maintenance by the county is just not maintained for some reason because they never have enough money. Where does it all go? Out at Topaz, they've got holes in the roads out there, and they got roads around Tillman and Kimmerling is overloaded with traffic. The whole infrastructure is overloaded with traffic. The GIDs can't fix that. I don't know whether our property taxes can either. But it's puzzling why our property taxes aren't enough to pay for the government services that are supposed to be provided.
Okay, we're going to start the next question with Mr. Rice. How do you think your length of time in the community will influence your actions as a commissioner?
I'm not sure I understand the question. My lack of time in the community?
Length of time.
Length of time. Okay, I can live with that one.
Mr. Rice and I have the same problem.
Yeah, but you fixed yours. Anyway, I have lived here since 1991. I've been with the Sheriff's Department. I've been with the GID. I've been with the Sewer Authority. I'm now with the Constable's Office. I've seen just about every aspect of this community. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the better than that. And this is a marvelous community, and I understand this community. I listen to this community. I have the voice of those who I trust, who helped to guide me. They got me into this mess to begin with. And I really, truly believe that the people that have the faith in me have the faith in me because they believe in my abilities to care for this county.
Going back almost 100 years here, I've connected to the valley as well as the lake. I believe that my experience and knowledge surpasses most, because that's been my career and my life. I know I can help this county. I've done it for everybody else. I love the ruralness. I want to keep it pristine. I want to make this a place of destination recreation. And I believe all my experience and knowledge that I can bring to this table. I've been the best negotiator in this, probably one of the best in the state of Nevada. I have dealt with every regulatory agency, NDOT, TRPA. I've built relationships with them. I was the one who conquered the Public Utility Commission when the Southwest Gas came in and wanted everybody to know where every location is. I was successful. I gotta go, sorry.
Okay, I speak 5 languages, 3 of them pretty good. What's that got to do with being a county commissioner? Nothing. The master plan, the land use portion of the master plan, is vital to all of us because it's going to decide whether we maintain this area as rural or urban. There have been people on the commission as of late who have voted 96% of the time for variances to our master plan so that developers can come in and put in housing projects. I have financed my own campaign. I owe nobody anything except to you, the voters. And my position is we keep it rural and we'll fight to keep it that way.
Let me see if I can get this right, Judge. Your question was, how does your length of time in the community maybe enhance or help you in regards to your either position on the county commission or maybe your future position? I'm one of the lucky ones. I've been here for 38 years. I'm married to a second generation where do you, I mean, you have to live in this community a long time. I'm sorry. I'm looking out at a lot of people, and I know Wes asked how many people were born and raised here, and not that many people raised their hands. So when you live in a community this long, not just 5 years, and you think you know it all, but when you live in this community for 38 years, you know who to reach out and talk to. When there's an item that comes up before you, before the county commission, you know who to reach out and talk. You know, because if you don't, they're going to call you on the phone. They're going to let you know, and you're going to listen to a lot of people. So I would say 100%, your time here in the county, 100% is a value to you as a board member on the commission. Thank you.
Okay, next question will begin with Ms. Murphy with 2 minutes, Ms. Murphy. For a variety of reasons, it's almost certain that 2 of you will be elected by a minority of the electorate. Now, what do you think your obligation is to Douglas County residents who either didn't have a chance to vote for you or chose not to vote for you? So this is a leadership question. We're asking you and all the other members, how do you represent the people that either voted against you or couldn't vote in the primaries? Because a majority of the primary voters is probably way less than half of all the voters in Douglas County. Go ahead.
How do I represent? I represent them all the same. We're all, I mean, I don't know why they didn't get out and vote. That's not for me to judge. I don't judge anybody. All I know is that I represent everybody. I represent the county as a whole, not an individual, not a group, not a special interest group, not the establishment. I represent you. That's what I have done for 26 years. I have a track record proving that I've always represented everybody. Whether we had our differences, I had my differences here. We became allies afterward. People at my committee, I was, the Legislative Advisory Committee that I sat on, I was continually appointed by the legislatures as well as recommended by all my peers. Because I had one thing, I was honest, integrity, I was fair, and I was straightforward. And that's what they wanted. They just wanted simple honesty. They wanted transparency. And everybody deserves that. And I believe that the people deserve better than what they're getting today. Because what happens is the establishment loses their way, and the next thing you know, they have their own agenda. But I can guarantee you, with all my heart and my belief, for 26 years of my public service to the state, to Douglas County or to Tahoe Douglas, I have never, ever wavered. I've listened to everybody, and even people that I've had my differences, I would cross the aisle and I would work it out. Because I've always believed, united we can, divided we can't. Yes, I've made enemies along the way when I had to negotiate with NDOT. But you know what Winston Churchill said? You have enemies? Good. That means you stood up for something in your lifetime. That's right. So if I have a few enemies, by golly, I must have stood up for you.
Jana was correct when she's talking about the establishment. They are not interested in you or me. One of the things that I have encountered with meeting folks across this county during this campaign, they are 100% in favor of, across the board, no dispute, and you rarely run into this where you don't have somebody going in another direction. Everybody wants to maintain the rural character of our county. We cannot accommodate everybody who wants to move here. It's impossible. One commodity that we have to be very careful with is water. We're the driest state in the nation. We have to be a little oasis here. And watch out if some of these other municipalities start to covet our water when they run out. And it's already starting to happen around us. We cannot keep on going like we're going. We have to fight and stay rural. And you want candidates that are going to stand up for you guys, not the establishment. I don't owe anybody anything. Thank you.
So yes, 2 of us will be elected. 2 Republicans. I know that. I'm hoping to be one of them, by the way. One of the most interesting part about being elected in a very conservative county is that one day you're not elected and the next you are, and you represent everybody. Doesn't matter. When people call me up on the phone, I can take them out to coffee. I don't ask them, are you Republican, are you a Democrat, are you independent? It doesn't matter. Once you're elected, you represent everybody. Now remember, we still have our core values. We do. Same thing. I have my morals, my belief system. That doesn't change. It doesn't change who I am, but you have to represent everybody. And I can tell you, when you've lived here as long as I do, I got a lot of people calling me up and saying, hey, this is what my thought is on this. That's how you get it done.
For whatever reason, the legislature decided to change the law and make it so that if there's nobody running from the other party, that those that are voting for Republicans will elect Republicans. I'm not sure that's right, but that's the way it is. I really think that anyone who's here tonight who is not registered as a Republican would be doing themselves and the county a favor. If you have a candidate up here you like, register, as much as it might bother you, register as a Republican. Vote for the candidate you believe in, and then the next day go change it back again. And then you can sleep well that night. I believe that when we're elected, we represent everybody. As a police officer, I've been a police officer for 50 years. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter whether somebody's Republican, Democrat, or Independent, you represent them.
Okay. I think, Mr. Engels, it's your turn. You got the mic? All right. You got to figure it out. Cocked and loaded. We're on it. It's pretty common for members of the commission to have very different ideas about government. How would you work to acknowledge and respect those differences and yet still be an effective leader?
The master plan is the key. The land use portion of it is real important. The master plan is something that should not be deviated from. I've heard a lot of discussion about it being a living, breathing document, like Hillary Clinton talking about our Constitution. No. It's pretty much got to be set. Otherwise, why even have a master plan? I have also been to county commissioner meetings where there was a young lady there had moved here to get her kids away from the big city, and all of a sudden there's a big development going almost in her backyard, and she's pleading with the commissioners, why are you doing this? A response from the bench was, you should have read the master plan. Well, if you just do variances to the master plan, what's the point of even bothering to read it? We have to stick to it, and it's not being adhered to. This master plan now is just like a taffy pull. The master plan that was originally done about 20 years ago is a pretty darn good document, and we can pretty much stick with that as a baseline. I think we should get rid of all these receiving areas. There should be a standard set that everybody plays with, and we all have the same rules, but you don't know what to expect, where to move, what to go, what's going on in regard to that master plan. And the other thing I don't understand, we're pumping 1 million gallons a day of water out to Carson City. Now Dayton has run out of water and they've tapped into that line. We got to start watching it. And nobody keeps talking about water. They think they have this massive lake underneath us. Well, how's that working out for Las Vegas? Thank you.
Well, if you can count to 3, you can pretty much set your agenda. That's the most interesting part about being on the Board of County Commissioners. There are 5 of us. It takes 3, sometimes 4, when you need a supermajority. But you need 3 votes. That's what makes us so unique. Now, I will tell you, yeah, my opponent, he says, yeah, I vote a lot. So do 3 of my other colleagues. Most votes are 4-1. Why? Because we're looking out for the best interests of the county. Yeah, they're not easy votes, but the neat part about being on the commission is you bring 5 different people to the table. That's always how it's been. 5 different people to the table. Each one of us has a different idea, but when we all come together, as long as you can count to 3, you hope for 4, a lot of times it's 5, you get what you need to get done, and that's what we do. We make Douglas County great by making sure that we get things done. Count to 3. That's how it happens.
I, for one, do not believe that the master plan is set in stone. The 10 Commandments are set in stone, and they came off of the mountain. How many times has our Constitution been amended? How many ladies in this room have a vote because the Constitution was amended? How many people of color have a vote because the Constitution was amended? The Constitution was written by people far smarter than most people that I know, and they knew that from time to time things have to be amended. I believe that our master plan is a document like that. When it was written, they thought maybe we can build here, build there, don't build here, and then over time things changed. What they thought would work at one time won't work now. Changing a document for the better of the county is not a bad thing.
Question again?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because I thought that sounded a little different to me. I don't know if we went off base. I mean, this has happened at another forum, so I had to re-ask, and they were all answering it something different.
It's pretty common for members of the commission to have very different ideas about government. How would you work to acknowledge and respect those differences and yet still be an effective leader?
See, that's what I mean. I thought I heard the question different. Oh, boy. Well, we're all going to have difference of opinions. I don't care who you're with. If you have 2 people, you're going to have difference of opinion. I only have 1 minute, too, huh? So I think, like I said earlier, that I pride myself on negotiation, because what I do is I go by the facts. I'm a numbers person. I go by the numbers. And a lot of the county work is done by numbers, except policy. Policy is one of the most important things. That's what a county commission really does. They set policy. I've written policy. I enforce policy. And that's what basically what a county commissioner does. I've written it at the state level, I've written it at the local level. But as far as our differences, and you got to collaborate together. But I think if you show the facts, I think you can come to a consensus. And to collaborate, I think that is very important as a county commissioner. But I'm not a go-along, get-along person, okay? I'm not. Any official, anything I've done, any committee I've ever sat on, any board, I'm go along, get it right.
Okay, this is the second round, and the next round of questions is from the audience. The audience has submitted their questions. If a question is directed to you, you have 1 minute to respond. And I just went through these, and one of them is directed to somebody, but it doesn't say which one. So anyway, I think what we'll do is let's just reverse things. So we just finished with Miss Murphy. This time I'm going to let you start, Miss Murphy, and we're going to go the other way instead of this way. We're going to go that way.
Got it.
Okay?
Make us busy.
But it's only 1 minute this time.
Round robin.
What is your opinion of the redevelopment area number 2 at Lake Tahoe?
I haven't seen the feasibility study. I need to see the numbers. I am all about numbers. People can bring me their numbers, and I'm going to validate those numbers. I'm going to do my own research, my own homework. Because trust me, I have been with the county trying to get the water system back, and I got their numbers, and then all of a sudden, then they start changing, and then the numbers start changing again. So I have to do my own numbers. I got to validate it myself. Somebody gives me numbers, I need to know. And as far as the redevelopment in the area, RDA2, I don't know if all of you know how that all is generated and works. There's a methodology behind that. But there's other means and other methods and solutions that you can come up with. There's a tourism district, there's an assessment district, there's other ways of doing a redevelopment district in different types of areas. And those are solutions that you have to look at. You got to...
I, for one, am a proponent of RDA2. I think that we need to make sure that Lake Tahoe is successful. 40% of the tax money that takes care of this county flows off of the hill. Things are drying up. Tax money is going to be drying up. With the Indian gaming starting several years ago, the casinos had to reinvent themselves. We need to be a destination for not only gaming, because millennials don't much care about gaming. They'll game while they're here, but we need to have events that draw them here, so they spend their money, they spend their taxes. The TOT flows off of the hill. It will pay for itself, and nothing is going to flow uphill to hurt the rest of this county. I believe that.
So, being that I'm an active member of the board, finishing up 3.5 years, going into my 4th, I was one of the ones that did vote for the creation of the redevelopment area. That was a 4-1 vote. At least 80% of your current board voted to create the RDA number 2. 5 of us just decided to shut down RDA 1 after 20 years. They have a 30-year lifespan. I totally support the idea of the redevelopment area and what is projected, but what we need to make sure everybody understands, this is not over yet. We're all sitting around, we as commissioners, the 5 of us, we're waiting for that next step of once you create a redevelopment area, the next step is we start to get all the experts that come in and say, this is what you can do, this is how much money you're going to raise. That's when the rubber meets the pavement. That's when we'll know. All the speculation that's going on now, hey, I'm all about, let's hear from the experts and see what they have to say. That's when the final vote will be taken, whether this really works or not. But I totally support the idea for a lot of what Wes just said.
I'm opposed to the RDA2 for the following reason. I'm not opposed to the casinos putting in an event center. They're corporations, they have a lot of money, and they can go ahead and do it. I'm opposed to the methodology that was employed to create the RDA2, which are stipulated as areas that are blighted. There's nothing much up at the lake that is blighted. This is going to siphon off over $200 million from the tax base that helps the schools, sheriff, fire, roads, infrastructure in the county. I'm not in favor of building an NFL stadium for some NFL owners with my tax money.
Okay, I'm going to start with Mr. Engel on this one. This is a follow-up on the affordable housing issue. And the person in the audience says, what steps would you take to help resolve the growing housing crisis that is affecting a large portion of the constituency, particularly the working class? So, no longer about affordable housing, it's about what can you as a member of the Board of County Commissioners do to help alleviate that problem?
Well, one thing that could have been done is the RDA2 could have put in housing up there at the lake for the employees that work up there at the casinos, but they elected not to do that. They expect us to take care of everything down here. I'm not opposed to helping out, but the problem we're encountering is that we're being overwhelmed. It is pushing the price of land up to a point where no matter what you do, you can't put in affordable housing, or it's all relative. When I got out of the Army, I couldn't afford a house. It was a long time before I got into a house. I lived in an apartment. I've heard that the guys in the sheriff's department, the young guys coming into the department, have a hard time finding a place to live. Well, I used to be a cop with the LAPD. I was a reserve, and I'd see these young guys come in. They'd be pulling down a little over $100K a year, and the first thing they do is go out and start buying a bunch of toys, boats, motorcycles, whatever. They got to save their money to buy a place. There are places in this area that are affordable.
I'm going to say it again. You have bigger problems with your infrastructure. It's been neglected for years. Before, it's like, how do I do a comparison? It's like somebody, I explained this to a few folks in here. It's like somebody having a leaky roof. Oh, it's in the garage, you know, I ain't going to worry about that. You know, I really want to remodel my bathroom. I think I'll do that first. And no, it's got it. You have to have priorities. Your priority right now is your infrastructure. You need to be investing in your infrastructure to make it stable and strong for who is here now before you start venturing off going to any housing. If anybody I want to help would be the businesses. I'd rather help businesses rather than having all this housing, because you know what that does? It just taxes your infrastructure more. We're talking roads, sewer, water. You have to understand that. I only have to say one word, and I think you'll all understand. California. Does it work? Seriously, does it work? No.
I believe that there are plenty of places in this county that we can build houses that our people can afford to live in. You don't have to destroy the beauty of the valley. There are places in the North County, in the East County, and when something is built, what we need to do is just demand that the people building these houses take care of the infrastructure as they're moving in, that they take care of their roads, that they put in the sewers, that they take care of the utilities. That is not that difficult, and it can be done here. And I think, as I said before, it's a shame when people that were born and raised here and work in your police department. I'm sorry, we don't have a police department. We have a wonderful sheriff's office. And thank you, whoever that was. I've worn the blue uniform, I've worn the khaki uniform, I've worn the green uniform, and I'm here to tell you, you folks have no idea how great a department you have here. And with housing, they can continue to maintain that.
So I think we're talking about multifamily housing and what we can do, maybe as a commission, what we can require maybe of developers. And I'll use as an example up at the lake. And if you want to really see a somewhat blighted area, I've been here a long time, so if you drive down Kale Properties, everybody remember you get down to the end of Kale, a lot of trailer parks there. There's a new development going on there, and it's huge. And those are multi-million-dollar condos going in. Well, guess what that developer had to do before he could put in that multi-million-dollar development? He had to provide low-income housing. He had to provide affordable housing. Of course, you're not going to find it in state line. They had to go across the line over in California before they could develop that place. They had to provide that to those people that were displaced. So there are things that we can do. You know what? As a county commissioner, when we have these projects come through, we create opportunities for developers. We create an opportunity for them to develop the land. Highest and best use, yeah, sometimes it's going to be a condominium project, sometimes it's going to be a multifamily, maybe a triplex or something like that. Look at the one across the street that's going in now. It's beautiful.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the final round for closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes in their closing statements, and we're going to go reverse order from how we began. So Mr. Engels will be first, then Ms. Murphy, then Ms. Rice, Mr. Rice, and no, wait, that's wrong. Sorry. You know, I'm fond of telling people that I've had my rear end kicked in every courthouse in Nevada, and I'm about to prove it to you. Okay. Closing remarks, Mr. Engels, Mr. Rice, Ms. Murphy, and Mr. Thaler. So, Mr. Engels, your first 2 minutes.
That's okay, Judge. We get a little confused up here, too. this is going to turn into somewhat of a popularity contest. Who's been here the longest, who knows the most, who's supported by this, who's supported by that. But what it's coming down to is ideas and what our particular persuasion is and what we believe in and what we want to adhere to. I can't stand up here and talk out of both sides of my mouth. I want it to stay rural. We'll do everything we can to maintain its rural character. We have to consider water. We cannot be everything to everybody. There's over 1 million people across those mountains in the Sierras right now that want to come here. Can't do it. So at one point, we're just going to have to say we can't go anymore. This has happened to several municipalities in Nevada already. Pahrump, Dayton, Carson's run out of water, but they were run out of potable water, and we're pumping it to them. They keep building. Reno keeps building. It stuns me to no end that nobody ever talks about water. And when they start to covet our water down here and want to come down with a pipeline, which has been talked about, then we're going to have to stick to that old adage. Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. And that's what it's going to come down to. I've been to these water seminars, and these guys are not too sanguine about the water that we have here. The water is good. We've got a lot of it. But we have to cherish it, protect it, and protect our rural environment. The other thing is that they talk about wanting to be here and provide for everybody. Well, I understand all that. But I am not particularly enthusiastic about providing for the living accommodations of other people's progeny. We can only do so much. That's the bottom line. And all of you are here trying to figure out, well, where is this all going to go, because you're all here because you enjoy the rural atmosphere.
I'm running for the Douglas County Commission in District 4 because I feel that I not only can but will represent not only the lake, but all of those that live in this county in a fair, equitable, and reasonable way. And I hope to foster cohesiveness and further our common goals. I favor a measured response to control growth to protect our rural life and to keep our county the paradise that it is. I'm privileged that I've been endorsed by Congressman Mark Amodei, State Senator James Settlemyre, State Controller Ron Connect, Assemblyman Jim Wheeler, former State Treasurer and Lieutenant Governor Brian Krolecki, Republican State Chairman Michael McDonald, Republican State Vice Chair and local businessman Jim DeGraffenreid, our dear Sheriff Ron Perini, the Douglas County Sheriff's Protective Association, and the Douglas Carson Valley Farm Bureau. There's a reason these people have endorsed me. They know that I am a problem solver, that I have the experience, the integrity, and support to do the job. I would ask for your vote, and I would ask that you take a look at my literature sitting over on the table over there, and those that support me, please be sure and take a yard sign. Thank you.
Ask me why I don't have those endorsements. Because I have other endorsements, people like you. And why I don't have those endorsements, I'm going to tell you why. Because I stood up against those folks, the establishment, at the state level and at the local level. And I was very successful. Do you know who I stood up for? You people, to give you a voice. Because the establishment, they're a group, it's like a clique. And you're going to get the same thing. Do you want the same thing? It's no different than politics at Washington or anywhere. Think about our President Trump. Hasn't he always said that? We need to drain the swamp. And we do. And I mean everywhere. And we need to come clean and be transparent, because I'll guarantee you those folks will not endorse me because they know that I fight on your behalf, and I've won. I've been successful because I have the experience and I have the knowledge. I've been doing this way longer than any of your state representatives have been in office. I was an advisor way before that. When I worked with Jake Jacobson, and I don't know, a lot of you know who that was when he was a senator. I'm sure Judge Perkins knows. He's near and dear to my heart, him and Betty. Big supporters of mine. Because you know why? We were the salt of this earth. We were ingrained in Douglas County. We didn't want to get involved, we didn't get our egos enlarged if we were doing something or on a committee or holding a position, because that's what happens. These people lose their way. I see it all the time. That's what happens to a lot of politicians. Sad but true, and we see it at all levels. That's why I don't have those endorsements. But I can guarantee you, go to my website, check me out, check anybody that knows me has worked with me. I've worked with all the regulatory agencies, and I have the experience and knowledge, and I truly am for you. Thank you.
I think Wes was reading my paper here, so. Thank you all for coming. It means you care, and you want to make a valued decision. Thank you, Judge Perkins. You did an awesome job. I'm going to throw some names out there. Former Lieutenant Governor Brian Krlicki, Senator James Settlemeyer, Assemblyman James Wheeler, Sheriff Ron Perini, Sally Diamond Wiley, Gold Star mother, the Carson Douglas Farm Bureau, Nevada Association of Realtors, South Tahoe Alliance of Resorts, Douglas County Sheriff's Protective Association, East Fork Firefighters, and many more. Yes, those people have endorsed me as well. Why? Not because they want something in return. No, it's because they know I have the experience. They've seen me work in action. Do I always agree with them? No. That's why we all come together. I have the experience. Yes, I am a long-time Douglas County resident. I'm proud of it. I love this county. I don't just say that. I mean it. I wouldn't still live here. This is the most beautiful place. I'm looking around. Nobody wants to go anywhere. You want to stay here. That's why they endorsed us. They trust that we're going to do the right job when the time comes. Being a county commissioner is not easy. Everybody knows that. You don't get in it because of the fun or anything like that. It's a hard job. It's a full-time job too, by the way. Now, my campaign has been honest, positive, and straightforward. I stand behind my record, and most of all, I will not resort to negative campaigning, even though others have done it to me, and I stand by that. That is my character, that is my life, and if you don't believe me, read my literature, go to my website. Most important, you guys have taken that first step. You've come to this, a debate where you get to learn, you get to experience us. I hope that come June 12th or during early voting, that you vote for me for District 2 Board of County Commissioners. Thank you very much.
Y'all want to stand up for me, please? On behalf of the Business Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Record-Courier, please give your largest possible round of applause for these very hardworking candidates. Not an easy job. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a 10-minute break. There's restrooms here, and then if you make a left down the hall, there's many more. And we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. And the candidates for sheriff will be ready to visit with you and share all the reasons why they want to serve you. We'll see you in 10.